is from our next comedian performer. This is entitled I Am a Birth Mom, and it is written and performed by the lovely Maggi Mayfield.
Woo! Give it up for boss lady, you guys. My name is Maggi Mayfield, and I am a radio personality. I am a daughter. I am a sister. I am a good friend. I am awesome. And I am also a birth mom, which is, thank you, simultaneously the coolest and hardest thing to say, and I apologize if I'm going to cry, because this is probably the first time I've ever shared this in front of a group like this. So, thank you. I get a lot of mixed reactions when I tell people that I'm a birth mom. One time I was on a date and I had told this man who was literally love-bombing me and said some of the most incredible things about me, and told me later that he couldn't see himself being with me because I decided to give up on a family. Yeah, I received comments from my parents all the time about how they couldn't support me, and that I just need to get over my issues having placed my daughter for adoption. There are other people, like these few fine folks in this room, that'll probably come up and ask me, like, wow, Maggie, that is so selfless and so beautiful that you were able to give your daughter for adoption. And to which I would reply, really? I don't know that if I could have another mini-me following me around, it would be a little awkward, because there's enough awesome in this space right now. So she is blessing Austin, Texas right now is what she's doing. 10 years ago, my best friend got married, and I just lost my job, but I was maid of honor, and I was determined to make sure that her wedding was amazing from start to finish. And that meant babysitting her dogs for 2 weeks while she took a 15-day cruise on her honeymoon. Well, in that time, literally the most beautiful, attractive man I have ever seen happened to move in next door, and feeling pretty worthless without a job, I was very eager to help and also share his weed and his booze, which we did often. And one day, when my best friend came back from her honeymoon, I had an opportunity to go see one of my very best dear friends play his last football game in Kentucky, which meant road trip. And unfortunately, because I was jobless, I was very short on funds, being the perfect maid of honor. And I figured out that I did have one friend who lived in Phoenix who had an undeniable huge crush on me and would do anything to get in my pants. And I was like, I know that he'll go. He likes my friend who's playing his last football game, and I convinced him that I was going to pick him up in Phoenix and we're going to go to Kentucky and watch my friend play his last football game. However, I could not sit for 2,200 miles one way listening to all the compliments and his endless attempts to get in my pants. And so my plan was to take Mr. Hot Stuff from next door on the road trip.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Young brains are so smart. But I didn't tell Mr. Phoenix that I was bringing Mr. Hot Stuff with me, Mr. Neighbor. And so when we showed up at the door, both of them were very surprised at my decision. It was a very long 3 days. By the time that we hit St. Louis, everyone in the car was like, we need a break. And we found the only bar in downtown St. Louis where for $20 you got in and got to drink all you wanted. And it was fun until all the jealousy feelings became amplified. So I'm gonna fast forward this part. I got fake arrested that night. I wound up waking up the next morning in a bed that I didn't know, and wound up having to I had to walk, take a bus, take a ferry, and then take a cab to get to the car that was left in downtown St. Louis, still having no recollection from probably the third drink in until what happened the next morning, only to find out that Mr. Phoenix took all the cash that he had and took a plane back home to Phoenix, and I was left with Mr. Hot Stuff, Mr. Not So Smart Hot Stuff, to get to Kentucky. Let's just say the rest of the drive was super awkward and weird, and I wound up making we didn't make it to the game, but we made it to Kentucky, saw the family, which was great. Wound up having to go back up to Minneapolis where my dad was staying at the time, which again was a really weird thing to explain, like why this incredibly dumb hot man was with me and where we were going next. he got an opportunity to take a job in Seattle. I dropped him off in Seattle, stayed a couple of days just to check out the city because I had never been there and I honestly had nowhere else to go, and wound up falling in love with Seattle. I got very lucky and was able to get back into radio, which is my first passion, and up until this point I've been doing it for 14 years and very successful in this career, and so I thought, thank you. So my mind was like, yeah, let's just jump back in. This was a crazy road trip. I need to get back to work, and I've got this career trajectory that I just, I'm gonna make it. So in Seattle, I wound up doing some overnights. I wound up making some amazing friends, went snowboarding all the time. I tried to be a vegan for a little bit. That's what you do in Seattle. And I made a trip back down to California where my best friend had gotten married for a visit for a baby shower to see my mom. And some other family, and I was complaining to my best friend about how exhausted I felt all the time, and I blamed it on these crazy overnight hours and how weak I felt because maybe I shouldn't be a vegan and I should actually eat something rather than dairy-free pizza, because that's a thing. And she looked at me and she said, "Are you pregnant?" I was like, "No, I'm a professional." So she took me to CVS where we got a pregnancy test and a pint of Ben & Jerry's, and I didn't even have to get home. All I had to do was open the box, and literally it was a car alarm that was like, "You're pregnant, you're pregnant, you're pregnant." And I was like, how is that possible? I haven't been with the man in so long. Well, it turns out that night I got fake arrested and blacked out in St. Louis was a very important night because 3 months later, I discovered that I was pregnant, and I didn't know what to do. I was in Seattle. I was living in a living room on an air mattress, trying to make this amazing career work, and I was doing everything that I could to make it happen, and it felt so good to be in market number 14, which was huge for me at 24 years old, suddenly faced with this decision, like, I can either be a professional or I can be a mom. And I'm living on an air mattress, and I can't be a mom right now. And so I called my best friend, and she came up to Seattle with me to take me to an appointment at Planned Parenthood where they gave me the ultrasound to find out that I was 2 days too far along to have an abortion. And I was devastated because I couldn't even get Mr. Hot Stuff Neighbor to complete a sentence, let alone a thought about what was going to come next. So I decided, through an interesting turn of events, follow me here for a second, my best friend married a man whose brother and sister-in-law could not have children. And when her mom passed away, I knew that day that they were going to take my baby. And so I quit my job in Seattle and I came down to California to live with my best friend and her brand new husband within the first year of their marriage because I was pregnant and they took me in to take care of me while I carried a baby to term and placed my daughter for adoption with his brother and sister-in-law. She just turned 9 years old in August, and I get to see her every Thanksgiving, and I send her birthday cards and Christmas gifts, and it is an incredibly special relationship, and she has never not known who I am and how incredibly special and important that she is. It was so hard to be pregnant and by yourself, and even though I had this amazing support group with my best friend and her husband and his family that wanted this baby so badly, they were just starting their third cycle of in vitro. And if it weren't for the fine folks at Planned Parenthood, I can't tell you how many times on my way into a shitty waitressing job just to have this baby, just to do something so I wasn't sitting eating bonbons on a couch like my mother said I wasn't supposed to do. How many times on that freeway overpass I thought, man, if I just drove off of this thing and hurt myself just enough to kill this thing, then I could go on doing what was important to me. But every time I walked into a Planned Parenthood, you were so warm and welcoming and helped me remember that it wasn't permanent and that it was very temporary. So thank you for everything you guys do. It is quite amazing. Yeah, so I carried a baby to full completion. We watched the Beijing Olympics in the hospital. And her adoptive mom, actually, that very same day that her new daughter was born, she went in for her third cycle, her third implant. And it took, and now they've got 2 babies within 9 months of each other, which is incredible. And they have the most wonderful, beautiful family. And I'm so blessed to be a part of it from afar. And to have continued on this amazing career journey. And I am Maggie Mayfield, and I am a birth mother.